Leonard, thanks so much
Definitely.
for spending a few minutes with me this morning, and would love to draw upon your recent experience having transitioned from your corporate career now into an entrepreneurial one in franchising. There's a lot of folks kind of thinking about it, considering it, maybe dipping their toe in the water a bit, just like you have in the past. So really appreciate you spending a few minutes with me so they can learn from you and your recent experiences. So can we talk a little bit about, would you just start maybe sharing a little bit about your corporate background and kind of what was going on for you in terms of business goals, personal goals that had you really start putting some time and energy looking into how you would pivot from that into an entrepreneurial career instead?
Definitely. First off, thank you, Leslie, for the time. I really appreciate having this opportunity to share kind of my experience with others, and hopefully that they also gain something from this to motivate them to take a leap. And that's frankly what we did. So really my background, the past 20 years of my professional career has really been around business management, business operations, and strategy. I've worked for many Fortune 500 companies along with many smaller kind of independently owned organizations. But one common theme across all those organizations has always been about how do we drive efficiencies in a business to also fund growth? And then how do we identify new growth opportunities for that business as we look to take it to the next level? And that's really been my career professionally. As I've worked through both as an external consultant and internal consultant on strategy, along with a variety of other roles, what I learned along the way is that there was a common theme just fundamentally around, hey, to do this, you really have to be focused on kind of key aspects of the business. What are the financials of the business? What are the operational kind of policies, procedures in the business, and how effective are they, along with the culture of the team and what they can actually do? So when we think about those three things, everything that we talked about as it relates to how to drive efficiencies operationally or drive growth by either entering a new market or acquiring a new business, all fundamentally tied back to those three things. So as my wife and I were looking at our personal life and looking at where we were professionally and looking at what we want to do, we have two young children, both under the age of 10. We wanted to spend more time with them, but we didn't want to retire early. We wanted to keep working, but create more time where we were not making choices that were dependent upon how we deliver to someone else in a business, but instead making choices to better satisfy the needs of our family and everything else falling around that. And that's really kind of what drove us to look at doing an entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial endeavor, and more specifically, franchising as a method for that because of the established policies and procedures that exist within the franchise system that we can easily just replicate and, for lack of a better term, exploit in our local market as the local owner as well.
So some lifestyle considerations, it sounds like, Leonard, that, you know, actually when you and I first met a good number of years ago, I think it was definitely pre-kids, and I think it was pre-wife. And so
it was
life changes as you expand your family and your kind of priorities about how you want to organize the other parts of your life. So that's a very common theme I hear from a lot of people, that they want to continue to grow professionally, but they just want to have a bit more say so over the schedule that goes along with that. So that's yours is a very common one that we hear from a lot of people.
Right.
Well, let's talk about.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Leonard.
I was going to say, and over the 10 years that we've known each other, 10 plus years, our desire evolved as well. We started always having this itch in the back of our mind around wanting to do this, but never quite pulling the trigger until it was like, no, now is the time, because if we didn't do it now, we won't do it. And that's kind of where we were in making a choice now.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the business that you bought. You've been looking for a while. We looked at a lot of things. So please share about what business you just bought. You've been in it for a few months now. And what about it? What made this one make the final cut for you and Francesca?
Definitely. So let me start with first, when we entered into this endeavor seriously and said, all right, what do we want to look? We didn't have a particular business or a type of business in mind outside of the fact that we had some criteria, to your point, of a lifestyle. We wanted to maintain a lifestyle of allowing us time to have a flexible schedule. But we did also want a business that allowed us to actually more of a service model. So we wanted to have that service model to allow us to have better engagement with our community and also finally, then also creating a recurring revenue where we didn't have to necessarily show up to make the money, but instead the money and the operations could kind of is self-sustaining. So the business that we now own is actually a pool cleaning, maintenance, and repair business called Pool Scouts. Specifically, we focus on the North Atlanta territory, covering about 10,000 homes within our serviceable market. Within that, and doing my research with Pool Scouts and the pool maintenance business, it was a very stable business model from a perspective of it was recurring revenue, like I talked about before. It was an established business with 4 years already under its belt. It had strong year-over-year growth for sure. It just needed a little TLC. Again, operational efficiency, all those things that, again, I pulled from my previous experiences and saw as the opportunity within this business. If you would have asked me a year and a half ago, would I ever own a pool cleaning business? I would say, I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean a pool cleaning business? Those exist? I thought all I know about is pool boys. I don't want to be a pool boy. So with that being said, you know, when I take that hat of my corporate strategy background and looking at an opportunity as truly that, what is the opportunity regardless of what it is, being whatever industry it is, it's really about what are the fundamentals that are in place that align with what our needs were. And as I talked about before, Pool Scouts was one that aligned very neatly into that criteria of really kind of what we wanted in going out and doing this.
And that is so how the story goes with people exploring franchise opportunities often. I mean, you didn't come knocking on my door saying, Leslie, if today's my lucky day, I'm going to be a pool boy. I'm going to own a pool maintenance business, as you said.
That's right.
But it is all about establishing that criteria list. And then it is the industry. You know, we also talked about that you wanted an essential services kind of business. If you got a pool, that's an essential service. You can't let it turn into a swamp in your backyard.
Exactly.
So,
that's right.
But establishing that pretty definitive criteria list, and that then informs the search. And it just so happened for you and your wife that it was a pool maintenance company that bubbled up to the top to check those boxes.
That's right.
So that's a really, really productive way to go about it that we encourage everyone we work with exploring businesses to kind of approach it open-mindedly with a solid criteria list by your side, guiding you along the way. So, and Leonard, you know, I remember kind of really it was at our celebration dinner. We really got into a topic that I think is interesting, and I would love for folks listening to this to benefit from. We talked about how you really drew on what you learned in your corporate career to put the deal together. And you bought an existing business, which is a whole lot more involved than just buying licenses of ABC franchise and going to training and starting from the ground up. And there are layers and layers and layers of other things that you have to do, consider, complexities to work through. So it's a more complicated way of going about this. And your corporate strategy career you shared about really kind of helped you pull that together. Will you unpack that a bit more and say more about that?
Yes.
That's so interesting.
Yes, and I can spend hours on end talking through some of this for sure. So let me try to keep it as concise as possible. So as it relates to my previous work, I did a lot of time doing a lot of market analysis, a lot of competitive analysis, a lot of help quickly digging into an area and really understanding that area and being able to draw insights from that information to make decisions. And that's fundamentally what I did with this deal. Was the first step was, as I talked about earlier, there were kind of three fundamentals, right? It's really around the financial strength of the organization or the business, the operational kind of excellence of that business as well, along with really kind of the ability for continued growth and as we drive forward in that business. So when I think about those criteria, that's what I fundamentally did, was that I use a structured and where I want to first understand the financials of the business and then model out what that looks like. And then from an operations perspective, very much so, where were there opportunities? So really kind of using a method in which I can, for lack of a better term, create a score, a report card of, all right, is this a operational strength or is this an operational weakness? And is there opportunity to transition that? And what will it take, or level of effort with that? And really thinking about the growth opportunity being, all right, what does the broader market look like? How competitive is it? And then also, what does that then look like? So that's the first step to even assess whether or not the business made sense. The second step was, all right, once the business made sense, was how will we then structure the business? And so in structuring the business is that, we want to think about what our long-term vision is for us personally. So I think of my wife and I very much so as a corporation. We're a corporation in which we think about how do we build our portfolio that feeds the corporation, for a lack of a better term. And so in structuring that deal, we need to create a structure where we have, for lack of a better term, really kind of management oversight to where we won't be able to be into the business every single day, but have a structure that allows us to be involved in that business and have that oversight in place that we can continuously grow, whether that be within the existing business that we acquire or in other entities. So very much creating this structure that allows for a management company to allow then, as we purchase businesses, as we expand, we just build out new entities within that. And so there's some benefits and risks to that structure, but what we did was that was very much so the corporate strategy way of doing it. And it works because it allows us to create an isolation of really kind of each entity in a way that allows it to be self-sustaining, but also feed the corporate structure as well to only grow wealth. And that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, this is around creating not only kind of the flexibility of the family, but the long-term wealth for our family as well, and the multi-generational wealth. And what we can do is take investments from one entity, flow it back up to the corporation, and take that and reinvest in other entities. So that's how we structured the deal, from first an assessment perspective to then how we were structured, and using that structure, can it benefit us? And it did. And that's what I took from my professional background and how the largest of large organizations do it. And you'll be amazed at how many businesses and corporations that exist that have these little entities around.
I'm so reminded of our late friend Stephen Covey, who wrote all about begin with the end in mind, and then we're reverse engineering forward to the present. So yes, and clearly you stated this all along. This is not your last rodeo. This is your first rodeo in entrepreneurship, that you clearly have the goals and are laying the foundation to evolve into ownership of other businesses. And I love how, a lot of people, they don't see a connection between their usually a corporate career and how that's going to help them in their business ownership career. And this is just one great example. There are folks that have great sales skills that are going to be leveraged into certain models, business or franchise models that really need that skill for success, or project management, or all kinds of soft skills, knowledge skills that are built in one's prior career that can really be leveraged forward to their benefit and their own business. That's a wonderful, wonderful example. And with that audience in mind, Leonard, again, thinking of those folks who are thinking about this, they're maybe dipping their toe in the water. What are some pieces of advice that you have for those folks?
Yeah, I learned in my career professionally through my corporate experiences is that I am not going to be the smartest person in the room. I should never be the smartest person in the room. I should be the one to be able to identify where there's opportunity and surround myself with those that fill the gaps that I have. Whether that be an individual that has expertise or a capability or skill that's needed that we can implement that I didn't think of. I say that because going back to this idea of, if you asked me a year ago, would I have been in the pool business? I would say no. That's what it is. It's really about, I saw the opportunity, I see where the potential was, and now I'm very intentionally focused on building out around me where I have gaps. And that is a skill and an understanding that, quite frankly, I don't think I would have had and really truly appreciate it in my younger life or my younger career. However, I especially appreciate now in going into this entrepreneurship realm or world, it's become even more valuable because I don't need to be the center. I don't need to be the expert. I just need to be able to drive the team in a way that motivates them to want to do more, and also, but at the same time, have invested interest in it. So invested interest is being able to use a skill that somebody else has, that they have a strength, and being able to really use that and be strong in that, but also identify opportunities for them to grow as well, whether it be in a new area. For example, the general manager with my business, one of our first conversations was around what does he like to do versus what does he want to do. And he loves pools, but he needs to build out his business experience. I said, you teach me pools, I'll teach you business. And that's how we've worked. And that is only as a result of my experience in working across many different diverse teams with many different diverse experiences and really very different technical and non-technical experiences to help drive what the ultimate goals were that we were working on at that time.
So I think I'm hearing you say, enter into this eating a little bit of humble pie and knowing
Absolutely.
that you don't know it all, that there's more to learn than you probably know, and just being open to that. And I heard a speaker say one time, and I love this, it's always stuck with me, an entrepreneur alone is an entrepreneur at risk. So we all have to, whether it's our attorney that we lean on for contractual stuff, or definitely our CPA for tax planning and making sure we're crossing the T's and dotting the I's there, or whether it's marketing or human resources help, that we've got a lot to learn, and we shouldn't be an expert. We shouldn't aim to be an expert ourselves as business owners and all of those things. Like I'm really good at certain things, but you don't want me running your cash flow projections. That's why I have other people that do that for me, because it's not my sweet spot. So I think it's it takes a little bit of pressure off to try to think that you have to become an expert in all elements of running your business. So that's great advice, Leonard. Well, thank you so much. You're a few months now in. How long has it been since you took over?
It's been 75 days, technically.
Okay.
It's been 75 days since taking over the business. We're coming up on our kind of completion of our first quarter. It's been good. The business has had its challenges for sure, but they're really good challenges. I wake up energized to go in to solve the challenge much more than ever before. And equally so, it's been fortunate enough to where the business, I'm starting to see some of the rewards of the hard work with that research and analysis as well, which is also rewarding.
That's great. Well, that's great. Well, I look forward to, we'll catch up again in another few months. I'll hit you up 6 months in on your 6th anniversary, and we'll have a little catch up as well. So